Over the last 18 days, we've seen continuous protests in Iran. Iran is burning, Iran is raging. There are thousands of civil society members who are on the streets against the mullah regime. Will there be a change? Will there be a restoration of democracy? Joining us right now is the Israeli ambassador in New Delhi, Reuven Azar. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining us again here on NDTV. You've seen images of the protests in Iran. You've seen how the developments have shaped over the last 18 days. Unprecedented. I mean, the kind of visuals that we've seen, the buildings being burnt, IRGC and Basij forces, vehicles being gutted. We've been told that more than 30 civilians have been killed till now. What are your impressions? What are you picking up from these protests?
Indeed, significant developments in Iran. I don't know if it still reached the peak of 2009, but it's encouraging to see people that are, yearning for freedom. And we wish them success. We think that the Iranian people have been suffering so much under this repressive regime that has been not only oppressing them, but also killing them, Only in the last year, I think there were almost 2,000 executions in Iran. So we hope for change in Iran. I think that that would be a great relief for the entire region. But we don't know whether it will happen because the Basij forces there are very powerful, very repressive. We are holding our fingers for them.
Well, you are praying, of course, and you're hoping for a change, but one is hoping and one is actually being part of that change. I say this because Israel was engaged in a 12-day war with Iran, in which the US also intervened. The B-2 bombers came in and the nuclear sites were hit. It was, again, an unprecedented move. In this particular case, while it's a civilian, uprising in Iran, do you think that Israel and the United States will have some kind of a part to play if there is indeed a regime change?
Well, we are not intervening in the internal affairs there. We took action because we had to defend ourselves against the Iranian aggression. We are very encouraged by the messages that were sent by President Trump on defending the protesters. I think it's very important. We also identify ourselves with the forces that are trying to create change, but Israel is not involved directly in the political affairs of Iran.
Well, immediately after the Sydney attack against the Jewish community, there's been, of course, a rise in the anti-Semitism that has happened. But we were told that there were some intelligence inputs from Israel about potentially embassies across the world who could be a target. But my question is about Iran in this particular case. Do you think that immediately after the 12-day war as well, Iran continues to remain a threat, not just potentially to Israel, but Israeli diplomats, embassies all across the world? And what is Israel doing about it?
Absolutely. We've been foiling in the last 2 decades dozens of attempts of the Iranian intelligence and other forces within the Revolutionary Guards to, hit our diplomats and have attempts, terrorist attacks against our embassies. In the last few years, we've seen a new pattern of the Iranians contracting criminal elements in different parts of the world. One example was the abduction of the Chabad rabbi in the UAE. So we are, of course, following that very closely and cooperating with governments that might be affected by this terrorist/criminal actions of the Iranian regime.
How do you think should Ayatollah Khamenei be worried right now? There are thousands of people on the streets, but we know about the situation also from the regime point of view, that they are very strong, they are arms, they have a huge IRGC and the Basij force. So is it really practically possible? Because we've seen regime changes taking place in Bangladesh, in Nepal. We've seen forced intervention by the United States in Venezuela. Could that be a possibility in Iran? And what will it take for Ayatollah to go?
I don't know. I think we'll have to wait and see. There are different elements of Iranian society that are involved now. I think it's very important to contemplate which are these elements. We've seen part of the constituencies that in the past were supportive of the regime now turning against it. So the question is whether they want a correction or they want a regime change. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, shifting focus now back to India. Recently, NDTV accessed video of a Hamas terrorist commander named Naji Zahir, who has been frequently visiting Pakistan over the last almost 3 years, since October 2003 regularly. In fact, a week after the 7th October terror attack in southern Israel, he was in Peshawar in Pakistan. There is some kind of a bonhomie that is being seen between Lashkar-e-Toiba, which is a US designated terror organization, a UN designated group, and the Hamas. What are your impressions? Is Israel and the Israeli intelligence also tracking them closely?
Of course, that we're following that. I think Hamas has expanded the scope of its relations, especially following the so-called inspiration they had following the atrocious 7th of October attack. We've seen terrorist organizations taking, maybe want to imitate the example. And only from the open source intelligence, you can see that there are dozens of exchanges of Hamas leaders in this area. This is pretty worrisome. And you can only guess that it is the published activities that are also unpublished activities that should worry us.
Well, you remember the Pahalgam terror attack that had happened last year, in which 26 innocent Indians died. It was also an attack on the basis of religion by a Pakistani terror group, Lashkar-e-Toiba. Now, this particular person, Naji Zahir, has been going to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir as well, having rallies with Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Toiba, again, globally designated organizations. How worried should India be when it comes to not just the Pakistani terror groups, but their international links now extending to Hamas?
Yeah, I know that this situation is being monitored not only by us, but also by other interested parties. And we have a dialogue, with the relevant authorities in order to share our concerns. And I'm sure they're going to do whatever they need to do in order to, safeguard the interests of the Indian people.
On Hamas itself, Israel has responded by banning some Pakistani terror organizations. Do you think it is time that India also recognizes the threat potentially from Hamas and bans it?
Well, there is a clear threat. As I said, we have an ongoing dialogue on this, and I'm sure the Indian authorities are taking this seriously, and they will decide accordingly.
Well, on the question of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who I had the pleasure to meet earlier, last year, he had to visit India. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Do you think that perhaps Netanyahu could visit India, or some other visit could take place potentially soon this year in 26?
I can assure you that there is indeed a very strong will by both leaders to see each other. So it could either happen here, or maybe we could see your Prime Minister Modi, coming to Israel. We would welcome him. I'm pretty confident that this could happen pretty soon.
All right. Now shifting focus also to your visit to your home, Israel, along with two different ministers. You had Piyush Goyal visiting Israel, and you had the beginning of the FTA negotiations now taking place, the initial agreements signed. And then you had the foreign minister, External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar in Israel, who you welcomed on your holy land. How crucial and important are these visits from the strategic bilateral point of view, and especially focusing on trade, agriculture, innovation, and the defense strength between these countries? What are you looking to aim at?
Well, these two visits come following 7 ministerial visits we had from Israel.
Yes.
Only in the last 12 months, maybe a bit more. And this really represents, let's say, a new pace of relations that includes many initiatives that some of them already have bear fruit. We have signed on the defense sector, which is, I think, the most significant. We already signed a memorandum of understanding to increase the cooperation on a G2G level. We have finalized negotiations to sign also an updated security agreement that will allow more and deeper industrial defense cooperation. That's very important in order to create the capabilities that we need in order to deal with different threats. And on the economic front, following the visit of Minister Piyush Goyal, we signed the TOR for for the free trade agreement negotiations. We probably are going to have in February the first significant round. We hope to finalize this year. In addition to that, I remind you, our Minister of Finance was here and we signed a bilateral investment treaty. Yes. We are also negotiating more agreements, like signing a financial protocol that would facilitate trade and investments, cooperation between our financial authorities in order to streamline financial transactions. At the end of the day, we want to pave a highway for the private sector to do business much more easily. We've been hearing in the last year about more Indian investments in Israel, including takeover, high-tech companies that can give a competitive edge to big Indian corporations that want to, reach Western markets, developed markets. We are seeing, only last week I heard about a new agreement with an Israeli company to lead the building of a semiconductor facility in India. We've seen more contracts on the defense side. So the relations are really booming. And this is, I think, a result of the understanding following, the 7th of October and the Israeli effort against the attack it had to sustain, and following Pahalgam and Sindoor, that not only that we can trust each other, but also we can do many more things together in order to, deal with this challenging environment that we are seeing, not only from the threat coming from the civilizational threat of radical Islamic terrorism, but also in the new multipolar world, the competition between the great powers. India is becoming the new pole. And I think the fact that you have, taken action, you have signed all these trade agreements lately, means that you are sort of out there starting to compete in the outside markets, not just concentrating in developing the local market. And that means that we have a challenge on security, but also the challenge of being more competitive. And here, I think we have a lot of complementarity. And to untap that potential, we have to sign these agreements. We have to overcome some challenges, and we are working at it. We, during the visit of EAM Jaishankar, we sort of agreed on a joint plan of what we're going to do in 2026. So we are very focused, and I'm sure we're going to achieve it.
Well, Ambassador, since you mentioned overcoming challenges and security as well, the two prime ministers have spoken, I think, twice in the last 1 month alone. That says a lot about the relationship and also how we are inching forward. But I want to ask you one thing about what India and Israel don't speak about much, and that is national security, defense, and the kind of agreements that we have on intelligence and strategic cooperation. What is that one thing that will pace towards ahead? Because Benjamin Netanyahu in his tweet mentioned that the talk with Modi was about strengthening security cooperation between these two countries and taking over the challenges.
Well, I cannot share much, but what can I tell you is that we are building on the trust we have gathered to create more deepness, to find more ways to lean on each other when it comes to chains of supply, when it comes to not also sharing things, but also developing things together. And this, I think, is going to be the direction going forward.
Well, coming to my last question, and this is about the future of Gaza. We've seen some bombings taking place in the last few hours as well. But looking at the stabilization force, looking at the reconstruction and the recent dialogue that happened between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump, what is the way forward? What is the stabilization force that you're looking at? Because I see that the Pakistan army has been approached by the United States as well to be a part of the stabilization force. Will you be okay with that?
No.
You will not be okay with the Pakistan army being a part of the stabilization force?
No, we won't. Look, there is an effort right now to try to create a situation in which we can move forward. For that, we have to retrieve the body of our deceased hostage, Ran Gvili, and we have to be stubborn on the dismantling of Hamas terrorist organization. Mm-hmm. And there have been a lot of attempts by Hamas and by the countries that want to help Hamas survive, like Turkey, for example, like Qatar, to go around this. There's no way around it. No stabilization force. And, many countries have mentioned that. Even some of the countries already stated that they don't want to send soldiers because they don't have any intention whatsoever to fight Hamas, you see? So either Hamas dismantles or it will be very difficult to implement, impossible to implement the second phase. So we have to go back to diplomatic pressure to make Hamas comply with the terms of the 20-point Trump plan. If that doesn't happen, Israel will have to do it itself.
Fair enough. I was not expecting you to say no to my answer, but I want to ask another question. And this is about, if you are not comfortable with the Pakistan army joining the stabilization force, is it also because of the radical links of the Pakistan army? We spoke about Naji Zahir. Now, Naji Zahir cannot come to Pakistan without the approval of the Pakistan army. So the Hamas, Lashkar, Pakistan army link, is that something of concern as well to Israel?
I think it's natural for countries to consider cooperation with those countries with whom they have trust and at least diplomatic relations. This is not the situation right now.
All right, Ambassador Reuven Azar, as always, you've been frank, you've been honest. Thank you very much for this conversation. So the Israeli ambassador to New Delhi, in a very frank, exclusive conversation here on NDTV, not just speaking about the developments in Iran and in Gaza, but also giving a big news break that they will not be comfortable with the Pakistan army as part of the stabilization force for the future of Gaza, for the reconstruction. And also, we could possibly see a visit of Prime Minister Netanyahu to New Delhi, or perhaps Prime Minister Narendra Modi soon visiting Jerusalem. This is Aditya Kaul reporting for NDTV.